All right, friends, here is part 2 of our week 4 coding quiz. Again, these are questions 11 through 20. All right, so let's start with the laceration of heel, initial encounter. So laceration is the condition, anatomic site is the heel, and then they give us the details that this is the initial encounter. So every time I hear subsequent, uh, initial encounters, I immediately think I'm going to need a 7th character. And even if you didn't think that, right? Once you get over and you look at that base code and you look at that letter, then you're going to know you're going to need to include more just based off of that first letter. Again, that particular chapter, S through T codes all require a 7th character. So once I get to the word laceration, okay, then I'm going to start looking for my site. Now, when I went to heel, it says, hey, go see laceration foot. Okay, makes sense, right? The heel is on the foot. So I'm just going to listen to those instructions. I'm still under the laceration section, but now I'm looking for a different anatomic site per my index. So I come over to foot. Okay, S91.319. Okay, that first character of an S tells me I'm going to have to give him more, even though from your index it doesn't give you that clue of a little red dot or stop sign. It doesn't matter. You never code directly from your index. It's only a starting point. All right, so now I'm going to go over to where those codes are housed. And again, because I know that this is a chapter that requires 7th characters, the first thing I'm going to do is go to my category first, S91, and get any specific instructions, again, like the choice of 7th characters that can be applied. So here it tells me S91, this category, the appropriate 7th character to be added from each code will either be A, D, or S. Initial encounter, subsequent, or sequela. We got the keywords in there of initial encounter, so right away I know that my last character I'm going to include on my code is the letter A. Now I can go over to my final selection. S91, laceration, open wound of foot, S91.31, laceration without foreign body of foot, S91.319, 9 is representing unspecified because they don't tell us. And again, from your index, it tells you if you're looking for heel, go see foot. So it is completely fine that when you get over to your tabular section, you are not seeing the word heel. And the reason for that is your heel is part of your foot and they group it together, okay? So your final answer is S91.319. And here they give you the stop sign, right? So here's your clue. Got to give them more. What do? You go to the category and read the instructions for the category. Categories are your first 3 characters, S91. All right, let's move on to the next one. Acute and chronic cholecystitis. Now, you may be thinking in your mind, or when you took this exam, you might have been thinking, oh, I got to use 2 codes. And that's not the case because a patient can have a chronic condition and have a acute sudden onset flare up of a condition that is already established. Okay, so chronic means that the patient has had this, that the condition has been occurring for over 3 months and is expected to last longer than a year or more. Okay, so chronic is long term. Acute is just a sudden onset of something. Okay, so now we're going to first start with our condition. Our condition is cholecystitis. Okay, then I'm going to start looking for my type. All right. Once I get to cholecystitis, then I'm going to start looking for my details. So if you went acute, it takes you to K81.0. But if you come down a little bit further, you're going to find chronic with acute. So here's our combination code that includes your chronic and your acute. So you went cholecystitis, start chronic, and then again, because that is your long-term condition, and then what is occurring sudden onset and acute flare up or bout of this condition. So chronic with acute cholecystitis, K81.2. K codes are your digestive disease codes. I know I say this all the time, but if you don't have your book tabbed, invest in tabs. It'll make your life so much easier. All right. Now I'm over under my cholecystitis, and then I find acute cholecystitis with chronic cholecystitis, K81.2. Perfect. All right, let's look at the next one. We've got varicose veins in the lower leg, second trimester pregnancy. All right, got a little extra bonus details going on here. So the moment you hear or see the term pregnancy, immediately think O codes, okay? Because patients can have varicose veins and not be pregnant. That's going to come from a different category or a different chapter. Anything to do with maternal record conditions occurring during pregnancy will always come from the chapter that represents pregnancy conditions, which is your O codes. All right, so what is my base problem though in this scenario? Varicose veins, okay? So I'm going to go to the term varicose. All right, and I'm going to start there. Varicose, and then I'm going to look for my site, vein. Okay, varicose vein, but it's not giving me anything about lower legs or lower extremities and pregnancy. So I just got to follow my book's instructions. So once I go to varicose vein, it says go see Varix. Okay. Varix is right underneath of that. Varix. Okay. And now we get into specific types. And I'm going to start looking for pregnancy. There I am. Pregnancy, lower extremities. So your arms are upper extremities. Your legs are lower extremities. Okay, so lower leg, lower extremity, same thing. O22.0. That's our starting point. Okay, now gives us a little clue there. Always nice to have. Now I'm asking myself, what more could they possibly want? What do they need additional character-wise? Well, remember from our earlier code choice when we were coding for pregnancy, they wanted to know what trimester. When we were looking at the category, or excuse me, the chapter specific guidelines. So they are telling us that this is the woman's second trimester. That's probably what they want from us. So now let's go over. Okay. Varicose veins, lower extremity. Varicose veins, not otherwise specified in pregnancy. And that's what they want from us. They want to know unspecified trimester, first trimester, second or third. So O22.02, the 2 represents the second trimester. All right, up next, we've got urethral stricture due to obstetric injury occurred during last delivery. Okay, So now we're talking about something that occurred after a delivery, a past delivery. So stricture due to injury from last delivery. All right, so now I'm going to go over again. We're going to go right back to that stricture, and then we're going to go right back over to urethral stricture, and then start looking for our type. So post-delivery. Let's see what we got here. Okay, where's my stricture at? There we are. All right. So this was due to childbirth, right? Obstetric injury, last delivery. So notice here we've got stricture, urethra, trauma, see stricture, post-traumatic. But even if you didn't see that, right, we know that we need to look for something that has to deal with childbirth. All right, so remember that term sequela when I was referencing the seventh character of S, right? So that's something that occurs after an original condition. So the original condition was the woman was pregnant, okay? This stricture was due to an injury that occurred during that last pregnancy, or excuse me, not the pregnancy itself, but the delivery. So here we have what's called a sequela. A sequela is a late effect, okay? So now we have a late effect stricture of the urethra, okay, due to childbirth. So N35.021. Okay, so now I'm going to go over, wrap up, and confirm this code selection. Ensure that there's no additional instructions. And we can see here N35.02 represents post-traumatic stricture, female, and then the 1 in the code N35.021 specifies how this stricture occurred. So it was due to childbirth, N35.021. All right, up next we have malignant hypertension. Okay, so hypertension is our problem. So I'm going to start there. And I don't have to go any further than hypertension, the key word, because again, it gives me some non-essential modifiers that can be included in the disease description. If they are, again, they're simply saying that all of these types fall under the same code I-10. And malignant is listed there. So hypertension, malignant, I-10. Okay. Now, once I get over there, I made a little note to myself. So malignant doesn't, a lot of times we think about a malignant and we think of cancer, right? So in this scenario, malignant hypertension, they even give us a definition, which is always very, very helpful. They're saying that malignant hypertension is severely elevated blood pressure, okay? All right, and then you come down here, I-10, essential hypertension includes, pay attention to your notes, it includes hypertension malignant. So again, you're right on the money with I-10 as your answer. This is a great example of how some codes occasionally are just a category and no additional characters are required. All right, up next, we've got heart failure. Okay, so in this scenario, failure is our problem. So that's the key word that I'm going to start with. All right. Once I get to the term failure, then I'm going to start to look for where that failure is occurring at. And you can see here, failure heart, acute, senile, sudden. All of those are non-essential modifiers. They can be listed next to your description of your disease or not. Again, if they are, you're fine. You're still going to code I-50.9. All right. Now, let's go over to our tabular section. I-50.9, heart failure, unspecified. And then again, all of these listed diseases would also, descriptions would also fall under the same category. So congestive heart failure, not otherwise specified. If they called it congestive heart disease, if they said it was heart or myocardial failure, again, you would all of these descriptors fall under the same code, I-50.9. All right, up next we have hypoglycemia in type 2 diabetes mellitus. So this time they're giving us a specific type of this condition. All right, so now I'm going to head over and I'm going to go into my index here. I think I'm going to I'm going to go to diabetes, and then I'm going to go right over to my type 2, and then see what's listed there. All right, so after I went to diabetes, then I started to look for the category that represents type 2, and then you can see that everything's indented. So it's with hypoglycemia, okay, E11.649. Excellent. All right. So now we're going to go into the tabular section. Remember, your E codes are your endocrine codes. Glands and hormones, or endocrine system is the glands, and then each one of these glands produces hormones or secretes some type of hormone. All right, so E11.649, here we are. Your category, E11.64 is diabetes mellitus type 2 with hypoglycemia. Now, that's not enough though. So what do they want? They want to know whether it was with coma or without. So unless your disease description specifies that it was with a coma, then it is automatically defaulted to without. Okay, so your condition may not have described with or without a coma, but to make it a valid, complete billable diagnosis code, you have to specify. And if it doesn't include that it was with it, then it's always going to be without it. All right, up next, we've got nausea and vomiting. All right, another one of those where you might be thinking, do I need 2 codes? You'll never know until you get into your index. All right, once you get over to nausea, you're going to find that there is a code that includes with vomiting, R11.2. Perfect. All right, so again, don't need a combo code here. Okay, you found a code that includes both descriptors. R codes are your signs and symptoms chapter. Okay. And then you'll find R11.2, nausea with vomiting, unspecified, persistent nausea with vomiting, not otherwise specified. All right, and that's it, R11.2. All right, up next, we've got exposure to rubella. Okay, doesn't mean that they're infected with rubella. They were only exposed to it. Okay, so rubella is where I'm going to start. Okay. Once I get to rubella, then I went down and I found exposure to, and that puts me at Z20.4, Z codes. All right, let's head over to Z20.4. This particular category, Z20, is for contact with and suspected exposure to communicable diseases. Perfect. So persons with potential health hazards related to communicable diseases. Doesn't mean they have it, means they're exposed. And then we come down here, Z20.4 is contact with and suspected exposure to rubella. All right. Now everybody got number 20 right, but that's okay. I'm still going to roll through it really quickly. So acute upper respiratory infection. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, all right, I'm going to go over to my index. I'm going to start with the word infection. Okay. Because that is my condition. And then I'm going to start looking for where this infection is occurring. All right, so it's occurring in my respiratory tract, right? So I'm at infection, respiratory, and then I'm going to start looking for my type, upper, acute. So now I'm checking off all my keyword boxes that I can. 1, 2, so infection, acute, upper, I got it all. Nice. But again, never code from your index. You never know what kind of instructional notes are going to be found inside your tabular section. So J06.9, J codes. J codes are your respiratory diseases. And then you'll find J06, the category is acute upper respiratory infections of multiple and unspecified sites. All right. And then, but you notice here, okay, that's just a beginning, that's just a category. And then to get more descriptive, acute upper respiratory infection, unspecified, right? So they're not telling you the cause of it, right? So notice here it says, hey, if you do know the cause of the infectious agent, or excuse me, if you do know what infectious agent caused this condition, it's telling you to code it. But if known, but if you don't know what it was and they didn't give you those details, then you're just going to code it as upper respiratory infection, not otherwise specified. Okay, so you've captured all of your details. J06.9. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful and gave you some additional pointers. Remember, it's so important to review those guidelines that are assigned to each one of your chapters. Just remember that some codes, although they give you multiple descriptors, doesn't mean you're going to have separate disease codes. It can be all combined into one. And then again, also remember that any code that starts with an S or a T, okay, Chapter 19 codes, all of these codes require additional characters. All right. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next episode.